Welcome to the John Logie Baird lecture on the state of audio technology and the next 5 years. So this is my lovely panel, and I'm going to get each of them to introduce themselves very briefly.
Hi, I'm Melvin Howells. I'm an independent consultant. I run my own company, and I've been involved in next generation audio, standardization, and so on for the last 10 years or more.
Hi, I'm Werner from Bavarian Radio in Germany, and I've been involved into object-based and next generation audio for about 10 years now as a creative technologist trying to push things from the content side.
And my name is Johan Bolin. I'm the Chief Technology Officer of Agile Content, and I have been working with video distribution for 15 years, but I just slipped into production, so I have far from your experience.
Hi, my name is Lucas. I'm working as Senior Technical Product Manager in the audio production team at Lavo. So we are a manufacturer for audio broadcast equipment, and I'm happy to be here.
And I've realised I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Rosanna Prada, and I work for DAZN as a broadcast systems engineer, and I have a specialist kind of affinity for audio. So that's why I'm here. So we've got 2 topics that we're going to cover. And one of them is next generation audio, and the other one is about mixing audio in the cloud. So we're going to start with next generation audio. Elfred, could you tell me what NGA is?
Well, it's a big topic, but I think the way people have been describing it is that there's a few pillars, if you like, of next generation audio. Those are the immersiveness, so it gives you the opportunity to have more than you would have in a stereo or 5.1 broadcast, so it gives you sound all around you. And that part's proving to be very popular. It's already in widespread use. The second pillar is the personalization side, so it allows you to have some level of control over some of the things, change your language, choose your commentator, for example, turn things up and down to some degree. The third one is adaptive. So we listen to audio on all sorts of devices today. Some people might have spent a lot of money putting speakers in ceilings and all around them. Others may be listening on a soundbar, on a mobile phone, tablets, etc. So the audio that comes to us today needs to be able to adapt to all those different devices and play back in the best possible way, no matter which device you have, including headphones. The last of the 4 pillars, if you like, is accessibility. Some would say it's the first or the most important. Accessibility, of course, allows you to make that audio accessible. That can mean things like audio description, turning up the dialogue. There's all sorts of accessibility benefits to next generation audio. But also, it can mean that it's accessible in your own language, that the content is something that you can relate to better through different experiences. So those are the 4 main pillars of next generation audio.
Could you tell me about adoption? Where are we at with that at the moment?
Actually, adoption, do you mean on the devices or do you mean from a content point of view?
I think we can cover both. I think we best cover both.
Okay, so from a device point of view, it's a real good news story. Almost all devices, new devices now, are to some degree supporting next generation audio. So from a television point of view, almost every new television that you buy today has at least one next generation audio system in there, sometimes more than one. Tablets, mobile phones, almost all of them now support next generation audio to some degree. So device penetration is now not quite at ubiquity, but we're getting pretty close. It's rare to find a brand new device which has no capability whatsoever for next generation audio. So good news on the devices. From a content point of view, it's also pretty good news. Of course, we're not there yet, but if you look at premium sports, premium dramas, all the big streamers, they're all producing and emitting and broadcasting, delivering next generation audio on at least their premium top catalog. The big sports, the sort of real premium sports are all doing it, both in production and in many cases you can even listen to it in the home. So, it's come a long way in the last few years. But, it's true to say that they're not using all of those 4 pillars. In general, they're kind of at the start point. They're using some of the pillars, but not all.
Yeah, I think mostly I've seen like immersive's the main thing that I see.
I think immersive was the thing that people started with because, for a premium drama or a movie or even for sports to some degree, just giving people more of an immersive feel, feeling that they're at the event proved to be important, popular with the public. So, that one's gone very well. But more and more now we are seeing that there's some personalization going on. In all four corners of the planet, we are seeing broadcast operators experimenting with personalization. One of them, in accessibility, for example, dialogue enhancement is proving very popular. So almost everyone realizes that being able to have a dialogue enhanced version is very popular with the public. So I think that that's one of the, let's say, killer applications for the personalization side of things. And the others are coming. The adaptive is pretty much there. But I think the immersive is where it's up to today.
So we've got plenty of devices now that are NGA enabled, let's say. And we've got lots of content being produced like that. But where are we with actual consumers using it? Because I still feel like maybe I'm just in the dark ages, but like most of the time that content that I'm consuming, I'm listening to it in stereo. So how are we, where are we with that? And how far have we got to get to where stereo is the exception in terms of what people are using?
Well, it's interesting because, up until quite recently, stereo was always the default for everything. So, you switched on your telly, stereo would be what you got. In some cases, 5.1 made some kind of inroads there. So sometimes if you did have 5.1, you would get the little light came on and you could have 5.1. But I think what we're seeing with next generation audio is that big operators are sending that track, the immersive track, and the device is automatically able to go, I can handle that. So there's some level of device interaction that you can have, especially if you're on an IP connection. There is, it can identify and say, oh yeah, I can do that. So by now we are seeing that the default, if you like, is becoming the immersive. So if you can do it, I'll give you the immersive. And that the stereo is now the kind of second priority. So now that the devices are able to give out the kind of capabilities that they have, it's becoming easier to say, well, yeah, there's immersive. I can do immersive. I'll pick that up and use it. So as we are seeing the default becoming, even on music streaming sites are now defaulting, if you have it, you'll get the immersive version. So I think from that point of view, it's good news. And I think that's how the usage will build up. People will get it without even having to press a single button. That's the beauty. If we have to press 10 buttons, I'm not sure people will bother to do it. But if it just comes out of your soundbar, you buy a new soundbar, you plug it in, and all of a sudden you get immersive, that's compelling.
Mm-hmm. Now, Werner, you've been working on some real-world studies, I guess, of real-world cases on a couple of projects. But in particular, could you talk to me about the Orpheus project?
Yeah. Well, Alfred nicely explained the advantages of object-based media and next-generation audio quite nicely, and I've been involved in some of these developments very early on, from 2015 to 2018, where we collaborated with BBC R&D and with Fraunhofer and many others. It was a European-funded project, and we've been actually demoing this here at the IBC in 2017 already, so it's 5 years ago. And I have to say, I still have the app on my iPhone, and this is what we did. I mean, this is something like streaming from a server where you get all the advantages. You were able, for example, to switch from the output format from headphones to binaural, so it gave you an on-localization binaural rendering over the headphones, what we now have in many of the streaming services already, from both of the big companies, or not companies, but both of the big consumer electronic device providers. And also the possibility, which is very important in broadcasting, or it has become increasingly important, is about speech intelligibility, which means you can adapt the volume of the dialogue. Because, we have many complaints in broadcasting that the mix that the people see on TV is, they don't understand what the actors are talking. And instead of, doing a post-production thing now with artificial intelligence where you extract all the dialogue once again and, and you offer a second channel, with dialogue, clear speech or whatsoever, I mean, we have it in the production. And the thing is, I would say the big change is that we think in the future that we not just deliver a fixed mix to the audience, but instead we deliver the items that we have, for example, an immersive ambient sound, from a sports event, plus the dialogue, and in multiple languages. And this is what we actually did on this app already 5-6 years ago. And now we see it's really coming to more interest from the broadcasting side. But of course, we also know that the existing infrastructure that we still have today is, in this respect, legacy. It's not completely suitable to this one. But on the other hand, we see here very strong interests now into IP-based production. And with IP-based production, we have always the possibility to not just to pass along the audio in its essence, so in the sound, but also with the metadata that we need to describe these things and to make use of it. And if we, as a broadcaster, then store these things likewise in our archive, it gives us much more opportunity to later reuse this content for different purposes and for different platforms, because we never know what's coming around next the corner, which new platform which requires new audio formats. For example, who would have thought 10 years ago that YouTube or Facebook or TikTok or whatsoever, you name it, would be so important? And we all know from the daily scene that we want to have as a public service broadcaster our content also on this platform. We never know exactly what is the requirement. And if we only have one mix of it in the archive, we can't do that. But if we have the items of the mix, the stems you may call it, or the groups in the audio world, then we are much more, in the possibility to reuse the content and make use of it.
That's great, thanks. You mentioned to me earlier about a Swiss project that you saw in the hall.
Yes, this was a very interesting project where we've seen on the production side recently, 2 months ago or 3 months ago, from our colleagues from Swiss television, where they managed to do a football match in Geneva. It was a European Champions League, I don't know whatsoever, which they produced in 4 different languages. So in Switzerland, they always have to make German, French, and Italian. And also in Spain in this case, because it was a match against Spain. And they managed to deliver a 5.1 mix from the ambience, from the stadium, plus the 4 different languages with serial ADM over a network to the center in Zurich. And we were seeing moving the faders there. So in fact, the mix that was done in the OB van in Geneva was sort of with all the metadata passed along all across Switzerland, and we were able to see that. And this would have meant somebody would have been able to interact with this mix once again in case something went wrong, which is also a thing, if you are on a remote location, you never know, do things work out completely correct? And in the next step, you would see, oh yes, this is another step where we can move into remote production, where we can sort of control things over the network. And nowadays, lucky enough with advance of technology, we get less latency and we get all these things there, we can sort of move in that direction.
And very briefly, what do we need to move forward with NGA in your view?
Well, what we still need is, I would say, we still need a bit more of support and engagement from the vendors, especially from some non-linear editing companies, to get this metadata format that we use, this generic ADM, as has been mentioned, to get that really interoperable into these production systems. There are some things that are already existing, and also in live domain, we need it from the mixing a little bit more. But I think we've seen it now already here on IBC when I was walking around this morning. There is now some demand. I think Lucas will talk about that in a minute. But there's now some demand, and the broadcasters really sort of see that, yes, this is the way to go in the future.
Yeah. And there's some great open tools from both of the big next generation audio vendors.
Yes, a lot of these developments are open source available and are open standards, so it's nothing that is proprietary and which is nothing which is locked up. And so anybody who is in development is welcome to join this movement and deliver some code.
Yeah, and at least the tools are available free of charge as well. So
that's also true. Yeah, exactly.
ADM and SADM has been quite a, I think, relatively recent kind of innovation. Could you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. Do you want to start or?
Well, what is ADM briefly? I would say, this is a generic language metadata format that describes the relationship of the audio essences with the object and the beds. So instead of having channel allocations, as you all know, we have many channel allocation tables where we have to look up first. This is delivered in this way. How can we do it? This is not necessary anymore because in the ADM it's always described what is the channel bed, what format is it? Is it an immersive format? Is it 5.1? Is it 4+5? Is it German language, English language, French language? So this is a generic thing, what we want to use to store these in an open way, and we can make use of it in later delivering it into different codecs.
That's right. And it's independent of how you're going to transmit or distribute the content. So you can turn it into an MPEG output,
exactly,
output. So it's a nice way to kind of keep all your metadata there. In a format that can be then translated into whatever output comes. And if another audio codec comes later on or whatever, then it's all there. It's independent PCM plus some metadata to tell you what the relationship is between the pieces. And I think the vendors have done a good job of making tools that can translate between. So, if you're using ADM, you have a pretty good chance of being able to then distribute in whichever format you want.
Brilliant. Let's go back to this usage bit for a moment.
Yeah.
Do you think users want NGA? What's your view on that? It's
a really good question. I think immersive has proven itself already. Like I said, it's the users clearly appreciate it. There's great stories from various people, from sports broadcasters and from streamers, to say that users are looking for, preferring, showing their appreciation for next generation audio. They're seeing, even if they're offering it as a service and they promote it, that people are signing up. They're getting new users, new subscribers because of adding it to their service. So no doubt that's the case. But I don't think that's the case for all of the different aspects. I think for personalization, the jury is still out. Dialogue enhancement for sure, that will, I think that's a really important one. But I think the key to it is to make the usage as simple as possible. I think if you present someone with a load of buttons and you have to press this, that, and the other to get the commentator that you're looking for, the users may or may not want to interact with that. However, if it's all automatic, if it goes, okay, well, I have a profile of you, I know your advertising profile, I know you support Manchester United, so I'm going to just give you the Manchester United commentator, that would be fantastic. Or, I know that you have hearing difficulties, so I'm going to just turn up the dialogue, full stop. Or you set it once, leave it, and it always gives you the dialogue enhanced version. So I think, the more automated and, the more our devices know about us, the personalization side can come into its own. So that's a combination of having the objects there, having the next generation audio there, but also some intelligence from your device to go, okay, well, I'm going to pick what I think you might enjoy, rather than you having to go and press 10 buttons.
It feels like there's two kind of approaches to personalization as to what it can do for us. So there's what's cool and interesting, and then what issues have we got that we could use to solve it. I mean, we hear anecdotal sort of things about one of the biggest or most volume of complaints that the BBC gets is about dialogue intelligibility.
That's right. But the interesting thing is that BBC and others, there are cases where there's a program, for example, and in the program they've commissioned some beautiful music from a composer to go out behind the documentary about whatever it was, be space or whatever, and then they've hired a professor, a very distinguished professor, to talk about the topic. So it's documentary, and what tends to happen, and this is a true story, two sets of complaints come in. One set of complaints said, I wanted to hear the composer's new piece of music, but the professor kept talking over the top of it. I couldn't hear the music. It was spoiled for me because I couldn't appreciate the new composition. And then the other side, people maybe who wanted to hear what the professor said, there was this music droning on in the background. I really wanted to switch it off. I just wanted to concentrate on what the professor had to say. Both valid points. It depends on your point of view. So you can't please them all. No matter how good your mixer is, you're not going to be able to please everyone. So if there's personalization there, so you can go, well, I'm preferring the music, then you just adjust the balance very, very quickly. But instead of giving them a knob to turn the music up and down, maybe keep it simple. Have two experiences, a music-orientated one or a conversation-based one. One button, no more. Otherwise, it gets too complicated.
That's a really nice segue, actually, about the creator's kind of perspective, because you get content where you especially high-end produced content. You've got, especially in audio, you've got a whole audio workflow. You've got track lay and edit, and you've got mixers, and they've made that to what they see is exactly how it should be. And especially the storytelling element of sound is very important. When you're giving some control to the end user, it sort of seems slightly against that. So what's your view on that?
I think curation is important, right? So curation, so making an experience made by the producers.
I mean, this is always the fear from the sound engineers that their mix gets destroyed. But the thing is, you can sort of, in the production tools that we already have today, you can sort of define the degrees of freedom. So how much interaction is allowed? For example, if I want to shift the dialogue from +6 to +9 dB, is something that is quite something where most of the issues can be solved. But it's not that everything is freely available. That's very important to say, but this still needs, this still needs to be considered that, these degrees of freedom can be defined within the production.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, guys. I'm going to move on to mixing in the cloud. Very exciting. I've actually been, had this topic going round and round in my head for about 2 years now as to where we're at, because we've had I think live production in a cloud environment's been around for a few years now, but when it came to audio, it sort of felt like there was a bit of a gap there. Everyone was sort of trying to kind of do something with it, but the audio specialists in the industry were busy with other things. So I guess really, I think there seems to be more challenges or different challenges around audio compared to the video bit. And now, Johan, you've been working with SVT, the Swedish broadcaster.
Yes, I have. And the irony is that a guy with no experience from audio stumbled into audio and realized that, there's a lot of challenges in this that I didn't foresee. So some background. If some of you listened to the previous panel and so on, there's a lot of talk about moving to IP. That is not what we're doing. We're not moving to IP. We are redefining what TV is and how we produce it using IP as one of the tools. If we just try to move everything as it is to IP, we are missing the entire point. So some background here. You already picked up on personalization and about knowing what's around the next corner. It's about being able to work with Twitch and with TikTok as alternative partners rather than alternative services. and so on. And that's the background for the project we're doing with Swedish Television. So they realized that, hey, to stay competitive in this extremely challenging market, we need to, one, have more content so we can do more content that is more relevant for Swedish people because this is Swedish Television, right? And two, we must be able to curate and distribute this content in such a way that it appeals to the audience that are used to watch TV on Twitch or TV on TikTok. And that's a different kind of curation than what you're doing when you do this on traditional TV. So that was the background. So we presented some stuff that was more on the distribution side to Swedish Television, that this is what we think is cool. And the CTO of Swedish Television said, that's fantastic, but I would like to get the cameras straight into that so we can do the actual channel program production using this platform. We were kind of internet guys and sold stuff on the internet before, so we were like, how tough could this possibly be? And engaged on a journey, and here we are. And Swedish Television is about to start producing and using this platform shortly. And you want me to share some of the challenges now as well?
Yeah.
So what we faced when we started to do this, so there were a number of challenges in doing. When I say cloud production, I'm not meaning cloud production on a private 2110 cloud in the premise. I'm talking about doing production, broadcast grade production in a public cloud using regular internet. So no special connections, no dedicated links, no nothing, just regular internet. And then you are facing a number of challenges in general, and some of them turn out to be particularly challenging for audio. One is latency and synchronization. Another one is how you build the just reliability, so you have redundancy and failovers in all paths, especially if you use internet, so you don't control the actual routing, right? You have to play with what the operators offers you when it comes to access. And then three, it's about how you build the applications and application architecture, because part of the success of internet services, or a large part of the success of internet services, has been that you don't need to build everything optimized for your particular application. You can borrow concepts and software from other industries and plug it in to your service. So in our case, as an example, we have used as much as we can from the game developer industry, because they have done a lot of amazing stuff last 20 years or 30 years. And much of that is stuff that we've been able to reuse. But the challenges, so if you summarize this, we have transport-related challenges when it comes to latency and reliability. We have some challenges that's related to use cases, because that's something that I learned. Audio is used in multiple use cases in broadcast production. It's not only the audio that goes out to the viewer. There is a ton of other kind of audio that you need in order to do the production. And that means that the use cases is many more use cases than you have for the actual video. And then three, as I just mentioned, we were looking for a solution where we could, instead of us trying to, especially us not being audio experts, trying to build audio applications, we want to find audio applications that we can plug into this cloud solution. And as much as possible, actually leave the option which audio solution to use to the customers. So it shouldn't be us, it should be Swedish Television who decides which audio solution they prefer, and then you just plug it in. And that has turned out to be, all these three things have turned out to be more difficult than at least I understood when we started this.
Timing and clocking in the cloud's an interesting thing as well.
It's also, and then just another reflection on that. A lot of people believe we are in the time industry. We are not in the time industry. We use time as a proxy for synchronization. And nowadays with AI and so on, you can do much of that synchronization actually without knowing the time. Because as long as you know what kind of signals you have and where they are located, you can, using some clever signal processing and so on, you can fix synchronization without necessarily being able to measure time in a microsecond accuracy.
Lucas, this has been a long time coming. Where have the audio specialists been in the cloud world?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are two aspects to that. First of all, and we had that when we quickly talked before the panel, I mean, there's a saying in broadcast that, like, audio is 10% of the budget, but it's 90% of the problems, and here we are. So, yeah, where have we been? Well, it's a journey, and it's not only a journey for us, but it's also first and foremost a journey for our customers. And we're in a time where only 2 to 3 years ago, like a broadcast audio mixing console core was a fridge-sized monolithic device with lots of cables going in and out. And I mean, IP is around since a while, and IP is one of, let's say, the requirements to actually go cloud. And we still today have a hard time convincing all of our customers that IP is actually a good idea. And so if you would show up and tell them, hey, by the way, we yesterday convinced you to go IP, and we no longer give you a mixing console core, but it's just running at Amazon or Google or wherever, they will just run away screaming. So it's not only a journey for us, but also we have to kind of educate broadcasters and service providers. And that sometimes is even the tougher job than building the technology on its own. I talked about this monolithic fridge. And so while IP is one of the prerequisites, the other prerequisite to go cloud processing is actually decentralization. So with this fridge, everything was inside, like control system, the actual chips that were doing the audio processing, routing, all of that was within that one box. So the thing that we at Lavo, we have been busy with in the last couple of years, was to actually rip out the things of that fridge and decentralize them and make them available in a better and more suitable way. So what does that mean? Well, today we still have a very, very small fridge that does the audio processing. And it actually only does the audio processing today. So all the other aspects, like the mixing console control system, so I always try to describe that as the processing core is actually the heart, and the console control system is the brain. And so that brain is already today cloud capable. So if you go down to our booth, we can show you that we actually have all of the control system aspect already running cloud ready. We actually have as a showcase our home system, which has one of the bits that we developed for this decentralization that is running in AWS. And so that is part of the journey that we are currently doing. And obviously for us, it was always important to try to help all of these initiatives and to be part of and to be open-minded. So I would say the direction is clear. It's a journey, and let's see when we end up.
What do you need, I guess? What do you need what are the challenges there technically?
I mean, I would say the biggest challenges already have been mentioned. So, yeah, Johan alluded to that perfectly. I mean, latency is one of the biggest issues that we have, especially if we go public cloud, because we got very good with all of that, with the adoption of IP and with better technology than ever has been there. But at the end of it, we can't trick physics. And so the speed of light is kind of the limiting factor at this point in time. And if you consider your services running somewhere in the Californian desert, the light travels some time to be there and to come back. So that's why public cloud is only one side of the whole truth. So we are convinced that we're always also going to see private cloud deployments or even on-site localized cloud deployments for big events to actually get a handle on the latency issue. Because while latency is fine for the distribution side in many aspects, even though we're already getting into an area where, well, we don't have to care about latency for audio because video will anyway be late. With cloud, let's see where we end up with that. But we always have these earpieces and intercom and communication, so that won't go away. And nobody can have a discussion with a talent in a mixed zone area when he hears himself like 10 seconds later. That just makes it impossible. So we're always going to have these on-site deployments of some bit of processing at least, and which perfectly suits into this entire idea of distribution, obviously, because you can have like your big back-end beefy, you can have that in the public cloud even if you want, and that does your final result, best case in next generation audio. But you will always have these local deployments as well to get a handle on, for example, latency.
What do you think we could be looking at into the future beyond distributed and cloud for audio? I'm thinking about like AI, machine learning.
Yeah, I mean, I found the discussion here very inspiring because I can only say I fully agree to everything that has been said, and we do our best to get better with the SADM adoption throughout the production chain. But obviously, it also has to be maintainable for everybody involved, and that first and foremost also includes the consumer. So AI is definitely a topic that we also as a broadcast manufacturer have in mind to not only simplify production workflows, but also get like a compelling story throughout the entire chain, all to the end consumer. So I think once we're happy with IP and distribution and cloud, this will probably be the next big topic on the list.
Johan, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think it will, to some extent covered, but I would summarize. There are three things that we are working on that I think they will change and going to need to change. First of all, yes, we are also looking into solutions where you might have some stuff running on the venue or at site, because it's very difficult to do some of the audio applications entirely in the cloud, even though we're doing everything we can to do it entirely in the cloud. We might be successful, but we understand that there might be local on-prem parts of that solution. I just want to pick up on Lucas mentioned the culture. This has been maybe the biggest obstacle actually in this entire project. It has been the culture change. And not only the change in how you're working, because the work processes looks different when you work in the cloud. Also, the broadcast engineers will do more of kind of programming rather than just connecting cables, right? So it's also a kind of a shift in what they do. But then last and maybe most, since we are not moving to IP, some stuff will be slightly worse than it was in the past, running on-prem. And actually, we must just accept that and say that, we might have to accept that some things will be slightly worse, at least for the time being, because that's how we can kind of jump on the next train, if you will, and see where it takes us. And also Lucas said that some of the things we think are worse from a time accuracy perspective, as an example, could be partly mitigated with signal processing and AI and so on. So there might be alternative solutions to the solutions we've had in the past to the same problem, so that the end viewer will not see any difference in the end. It will just be that we do it in a different way when we produce it. So I think all these discussions about next generation audio, I didn't know nothing about it, but it fits perfectly in the idea and the concept with more personalized productions that are more tailored for different distribution platforms and so on. So it fits the audience that in the end of the day will consume it.
Amazing, thank you. I've got a few minutes left. If there are any audience questions, I think we're going to pass the mic around. So if someone can run around with a microphone, there's a lovely lady there.
Just to pick up on what you were saying there, there's opportunities for the AI. For example, once you have all the objects available in next generation audio, all your stems and so on, there's so much that can then be done, either on the device or you can render in the cloud and so on. So, you have all the information available. What next generation audio does is it adds so much information to what you already have. So that means you can paint the picture back. either closer to the edge of the network, you can paint it back in the device. You will have all your timing and so on available through your tools. So there's so much more that you can do and redo once you have your, I think once you have both sides of the equation.
Yep.
Did we have a question?
Okay, great. I'm Leonard from Deutsche Telekom. Actually, my question is there a danger for too much automation? Too much, I think you prefer Spanish. Too much, you prefer Manchester United. But something else may be there, particular circumstances.
I think it's more about like sort of machine learning, kind of like learning what we want rather than us telling it what we want.
That's true. I think the key to that is curation. So don't give the people. Well, make sure that people get an experience and that they can subscribe to. Today, the experience is very carefully made, one for all. Now, we can't make one for all. Well, how can we make? How can we use the craftspeople we have to make 2 or 3 really compelling experiences that people can choose between? I think it's not a case that you have a machine that makes a new mix and you hope people like it. I think it's making 2 or 3 carefully crafted audio mixes, maybe more. But then people can choose between them rather than having all your objects available and some AI engine making up a random mix. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it'll always be curated by the creator. But give people a few choices.
What about in the consumer level?
So at the consumer level, the consumer would then be able to select between the carefully created mixes. So rather than being able to, play around with anything they like and make a mess of it probably, it's better for them to be able to just go, well, I prefer the, crowd-orientated mix or I don't want the crowd so much. I want the commentator, but that would be created carefully. The ADM metadata is there and so on to allow you to control.
I would just say one sentence to that. We did this sort of examination user feedback experience during our project, and it was very astonishing because people didn't know or don't know that there are these possibilities now. They are used to what they've been delivered for over decades. But if you offer them the opportunity and they really can sort of switch and say, oh, I can do this and that, they really appreciate it. That's a brief answer.
Well, that's correct. Actually, when we introduced Magenta TV with English, nobody cared. Nobody switched to English.
Yep.
Thanks.
With next generation audio, are there clear winners with certain codecs that you're looking at from technology perspective? So
there are codecs available. They're well deployed. There's 2 big solutions. So the Dolby AC4 is available in many devices, and PEG-H equally is available in many devices and used in different parts of the world. So I don't think there's one answer. It's not a case that there will be one thing that everybody will use. There are some already used in different parts of the world. It'll be horses for courses wherever they are. But the nice thing is now that the tools up the chain, the tools from all vendors are starting to realize that you may produce in one format. So you might produce in Dolby Atmos. You might then want to translate that to be sent out in Brazil, for example, where they're using MPEG-H. Fine, there's a tool that you can convert using ADM, convert from one to the other. So you're not stuck in one environment with one codec. And don't forget, the codec is only the part that takes it from the server or from the broadcaster to you. It's only the last piece, only the emission. The production can all be done in ADM, for example, where you have no codec involved.
Okay. When you discuss about adaptation, what about adaptation for environment? When we listen by smartphone, it's a quiet home or it's a street. It's any ideas here?
Yeah, so once you have I don't know, I'll take this one, sorry for answering the questions, but once you have the metadata and so on available, there's nothing stopping your mobile phone from, for example, this would be a device application if you like, but the mobile phone says, well, it's getting a bit noisy, so I'm going to turn up the dialogue. once you have that dialogue available, you can use the information you have in the environment to turn up the dialogue. Or even, if you go beyond audio, you could get to the point where the user turns the volume to 0 and your subtitle pops up on the screen. Now, once you have things in object-based or, in next generation audio, those things open out. So you can adapt your dialogue level depending on whether you're in a tunnel with the train or whether it's quiet. So those kind of things are available. Once you have the metadata, once you have the dialogue, then you can adapt depending on the environment.
That's just made me think of something, actually.
Just one sentence. There's still, in many of the consumer devices and the high-end devices, we have these things. The problem is at the moment, we don't have a lot of broadcasters who get everything already across. So that's the brief thing.
Yep.
We're talking about turning stuff up and down, loudness specifications. How does that fit in that?
Well, I think the experimentation that you were talking about in Switzerland, they did the 4 mixes and they wanted to preserve the loudness for all those mixes. So they actually decided to change not only the level of the dialogue to preserve the loudness, but also they moved the M&E, so the background noise up and down as well. So you can preserve loudness. You have to be careful, of course, but you can preserve loudness. I think no matter which system you use, there's a way to preserve loudness. Of course, you need your metadata to control that.
If you want to see this, I think it's been shown at the Ultra HD Forum. Go there to the booth and have a look. I think it's in Hall 8 or 10.
It's a good point. So, if you're interested in next generation audio, go and see the Fraunhofer booth, go and see the Dolby room, go and see the ATEM booth, because they've got some really cool next generation audio end-to-end multi-codec stuff there. Ultra HD booth has got some nice ADM demos there, and maybe a few others as well. So, here at the show, there's a plethora of next generation audio demonstrations, so I recommend that.
I think we're out of time. So thanks very much, guys. This has been brilliant. And thanks very much for listening to us.